Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Tony Shaffer is with us, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. What is the essence of Joe Biden's foreign policy and why is it such a failure? But first, this. Judge Napolitano here. Do you know that we, the people, have reached 34 trillion plus in debt? It's unsustainable and it's growing. Our government is addicted to printing money and it's not going to stop. And if you believe that, as I do, then you need to understand why gold prices will continue to rise along with our staggering debt. In this report called $3,200 Gold, it explains how rising debt will cause the value of gold to rise and it could reach $3,200 an ounce. Listen to some of the stats that I pulled from this report. They make a very strong case for the likely surge in the value of gold. In 2002, gold was $256 an ounce, and the national debt was $6.5 trillion. Last year, the debt broke through $33 trillion, and gold exceeded $2,000 an ounce. That is a 400% rise in the debt and a 700% staggering rise in the value of gold. And now the debt has hit 34 trillion and the value of gold continues to rise along with it. It's great information from my friends at Lear Capital, and I encourage every one of you to call today and get your copy of this report. There's no obligation of purchase. It's a free report. It's free education. Call 800-511-4620 or go to LearJudgeNap.com. And when you talk to my friends at Lear, tell them the judge sent you. Tony Shaffer, welcome here, my dear friend. Thank you for joining us as always. Yeah, you and I have talked about this 100 times, and a lot of our viewers are trying to get a handle on it. What do you think the essence of Joe Biden's foreign policy is? Is it a mindset stuck in the Cold War? Is it an idealistic, however misguided, view of American exceptionalism, or is it just feed the monster, feed the military-industrial complex so they'll finance our reelection campaigns?
Joe Biden's national security and his basic understanding of foreign policy is absolutely nothing. Zero. He has zero interest as a person. Judge, what we've seen, and I think why he was picked is because he's an empty vessel. I've met Joe Biden. I testified before him, and I'm of a belief, and I've thought about this. I didn't know you can ask this question this morning, but I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of days. The nature of Biden and where we're going as a nation with people like him. He's another form of grifter, just smarter than most grifters. He has grifted his entire career and benefited from essentially being morally pliable, from actually being the hyper, let's lock them all up guy during the 90s to the guy today who is professing a love for democracy and yet saying everything and doing everything to undermine it. So Joe Biden has no philosophy. He is literally a vessel for somebody. The question is, who is the Joe Biden whisperer? Who gives Joe Biden his points? Is it Jill? And I think Jill has a lot of influence on him.
Is it President Obama?
I think it's Obama. And then if you take it to that next level, well, who's advising? So I think Joe Biden is the ultimate expression of the left's political folly. That basically they pick people, they run them through. I had my friend Matt Ho on the show yesterday. You may want to talk about Matt a little bit about politics. You know, he ran for Senate in the Green Party. The Democrats sued him. I don't want to get off tangent on that, but I'm just saying that if you look at how they are more of a collective, it's like a hive mind. And Joe Biden is the latest face of that hive mind. So it's not about Joe Biden's philosophy or policy. It's about Joe Biden. And if just watch him, he shifts with the wind. The one thing that he said, and I think he's actually trying to work a little bit, is I think he he loved the idea of partitioning Iraq, of just breaking it all up. And not my idea.
That.
Matt Ho brought this up to me. So Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of every decision in modern history that I'm aware of.
Here's what I'm hearing for you. He's a sponge. He stands for nothing, and he absorbs whatever ideas are around him that he thinks are popular at the moment. Is that a fair summary?
Or he's told to say. No, I think he's like, let's just look at a recent example of one of his comments. Taiwan had overwhelming election, had an election in which they returned to power for the first time in its history as Taiwan, the same political power for the third time. They had 2 terms of one president, and the party won again with a different guy. But the theme of the party is anti-CCP PRC. They don't want to be part of China, the larger China. They want to be Taiwanese. And so they voted. It's a democracy. And yet, Judge, what's the first thing Joe Biden comes out and says, who's screamed about having less democracies and more democracies after the years of Trump? He says, we're not for Taiwanese independence, even though they voted a party back in power who promoted Taiwanese independence.
Wait a minute. I thought he was talking about sending troops to Taiwan to defend it from the mainland. Now he says he's not in favor of Taiwan independence, even though the people there voted for it overwhelmingly.
That's correct. It was in Reuters. Reuters did a whole write-up on this. Absolutely. And so why did Joe say that? Because I think someone told him to say it.
How bad are things in Ukraine? Is it on its last leg?
Yeah, it is. There's no way of putting a happy face on this. I think people at Davos and NATO spokesman and all these other NATO leader, it's like they're literally living in an alternate world. The Russians, I don't know how to say this without sounding pro-Russian. The Russians have won. There's no path forward for the Ukrainian military to return to an offensive. It's just not possible. The numbers aren't there. Well, the Russians now have the option. I'm not that I'll exercise it. I have no inside knowledge. I don't talk to any Russians. Just looking at the tea leaves and looking at the situation. The Russians are going to have the option now in the spring to go back on the offensive, and they wouldn't have to work that hard to do it. There's different assessments of how much Russian military force is involved. I think about 25%. Others are saying as low as 10%. I think the Russians have sufficient military power to take over the whole of Ukraine if they want, but I don't think
it's funny you should say that. And I what I'm now about to discuss, I attribute to President Putin's political skills.
Yeah.
He often uses his predecessor, the guy who was president after when Putin was not allowed to run for re-election. They since have changed their constitution.
Right.
Dmitry Medvedev, who's now the vice chair of their National Security Council. He often uses Dmitry Medvedev's extreme statements to make himself, Biden, sound more moderate of tone. Because today, it's funny you said what you just said, unless you already know what I'm going to say. Today,
no,
today, Dmitry Medvedev said, Kyiv is in our crosshairs. Now, we have never heard that from President Putin. We have never seen an indication of that from their military. They either mean it, or Mr. Medvedev is saying it to make his boss sound moderate and restrained in comparison. What does Tony Shaffer think?
Well, I think a lot of us on both sides recognize that this war could have been avoided. That, going back to your original question about Joe Biden is the ultimate expression of the globalists who want a pound of flesh. This has been brewing a long time. Again, I want to give credit where credit's due. Matt Ho said this on your show. I talked to Matt yesterday, just so you know. Matt and I are friends. Matt, I think in your show, aptly outlined how the war in Ukraine and Russia has been planned a long time. There's a lot of folks who were just gunning for that showdown. They really thought that Ukraine was going to be a massive resource add to the EU, and that they could collapse Russia. This was their fantasy. And so Joe Biden, being Joe Biden, was, kind of willing to go along with all that and be the face of it. And that's why everything is so bad now, because to your point, the Russians are feeling put upon. I've done this before. I'll do it again. Mongol, 1237, Ottoman Empire, 1570, Sweden, 1708, French, Napoleon, 1812, Japan, 1905, U.S., that's us, 1918, and Germany, 1941.
You're
These are
talking
all
about all the
invasions.
invasions of Russia.
So Russia has an inherent fear
Yeah.
of these things, and so that has been inspired by the bellicose language and actions by the EU and the United States. So I can see where people have bad feelings, but Putin, I think, is trying to be, dare I say it, the adult in the room. We just don't have an adult in the room on our side right now. So,
All right. Switching gears to Gaza.
yeah.
It appears that the Israeli government is about to remove a lot of troops from Gaza. Is this for real? And if so, why?
I think they're doing it because Joe Biden is putting pressure on them. Do I think they're doing it for real? No, I don't. You and I don't necessarily share the same views on this, Judge, but I will say this: that the Israelis are doing everything they can to manage Joe Biden's expectations and continue the war. That whatever you see
Nobody
coming.
can really disagree with that. I mean, you could even take that to the extent that the Israelis control Joe Biden through the donor class in the United States. You know that. You're involved in politics yourself.
I am, but the thing is, this is the dilemma of even the donor class. The donor class who want Joe Biden to be reelected also have to acknowledge that they have the Hamas caucus within the left. So you've put these two diverse groups together within their own little tent, and you got literally people who are ready to kill each other inside that tent. Not, I'm saying that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but I'm not for violence necessarily. But I'm just saying you've got large donors who are Jewish, not saying anything bad, and you got radical leftists who believe that Hamas needs to be supported, and the Palestinians are indeed under siege. So you've got these conflicting groups within the same political tent, and they're about to go at each other. I think it could be a major meltdown just because of the chaos this is going to create. And yeah, Joe Biden is, by all accounts, again, I don't have inside knowledge. I'm just going with what I've read and see.
Right.
I think Biden and Netanyahu hate each other. I think there's some real issues because their political futures, their respective political futures, and being successful in those paths, one of the two have to lose. Because for Netanyahu to recover, he's got to be seen as a strong man and prevail. For Biden, he's got to figure out a way to stop Netanyahu and make this Israeli thing go away. And they are in direct conflict, and I think that's why they hate each other.
All right, watch this. Chris, I think it's cut number 12. This is Admiral Kirby on when was the last time President Biden spoke on the phone? This is yesterday. When is the last time President Biden spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
When was the last time President Biden spoke on the phone with Netanyahu?
There has not been another call since the last one we read out. I don't have the exact date in front of me. It's been more than 20 days, I think.
More than 20 days. If we were to go more than 20 days without those enormous military cargo planes landing in Tel Aviv with military equipment, the Israeli military would collapse. Am I right, Tony?
I don't think it would collapse, but it would be significantly degraded. It would be degraded because the Israelis are committed to doing things as they have to.
All right. So the war is going on.
The war is going on. They're not going to stop supporting Israel.
I think it's genocide. You don't. The war is going on. We know that the United States is providing so much equipment. We know that AIPAC and the donor class pretty much has a lock on Biden.
I don't dispute that. Right.
So
I agree with you.
And these two guys are not talking? That's my point.
So no, as I said, their political futures are diametrically opposed. They're literally, to be successful, they've got to pull apart. And that's why you see this, like, I don't want to talk to the guy because the more, again, I don't want to get into the policy prescriptions that you and I disagree on. I'm just saying regarding the political posturing that's going on, no matter how you feel about it, it's very clear these two men are going in different directions.
Right.
And because they're going in such radically different directions, with such radically different outcomes sought, they're going to do everything they can to basically ignore each other. They're going to pretend, no, I'm not going to listen to you. And that's why you see this. And And the United States is going to continue to support the Israelis. I'm just telling you what
Yeah,
I'm not.
this is a
I'm not involved.
this is a very astute analysis, Tony.
Yeah.
Biden cannot defend the war much longer in the
No.
Democratic Party, and Bibi cannot afford to end the war,
Exactly.
or he gets
Bingo.
prosecuted and probably gets convicted. So their
Bingo.
interests
Right.
are the opposite.
Right,
One would
exactly. And
think
by the
that
way,
they would-
Judge, one moment, if I could, back on John Kirby. John, you look absolutely marvelous. You always, it's better to look good than to feel good. And you, John, you look marvelous. I have to say that for John. John is always a snappy dresser. He reminds me of Fernando's Hideaway from Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
You look marvelous.
While we're talking about personalities in
Yes.
the military, what is the latest with the Secretary of Defense?
Well, apparently he's out of the hospital, and he's back theoretically doing light duties at the Pentagon. And if you believe this, now I don't know what to believe, because apparently, he was on a computer. He was either basically on one hand he had a computer, and the other hand he had a bedpan trying to launch attacks into the Houthi. I don't know how you do that. I've never seen that done, but apparently, if you believe the Pentagon comments, that's what he was doing. So,
Is Joe Biden expanding the war by attacking the Houthis?
so he has no choice. This is let's break this down as briefly as we can within the time we have. The Iranians have had, via the IRGC and the Quds Force, a desire to expand influence in the region, period. That's the policy. No matter how you and I feel or anyone else feels, it's what they've done. That's why they've funded and supported all these different groups, everything from Hamas to Hezbollah, to the Houthi. That's their policy. It is what it is. They were launching attacks against us in Afghanistan in 2003, 2004. So it is what it is. The Biden administration comes in, removes all of the different points of control and influence that the Trump administration had in place. And one of those was working with our Arab allies to stop groups like the Houthi. There was a war, you and I are aware of it, where the Saudis were fighting the Houthi in Yemen. By the way, the UN supported this because the Houthi deposed the elected government of Yemen, and even the UN was supporting this at one point. So Biden comes in, removes Houthi from the terror list, refunds the Iranians, and Katie barred the door. So the Biden policies are what has led to the failure, because the internet, it's not just us, the international community recognized Iran was going to be a bad actor. So what we did is we defunded our Arab allies, made the Saudis pull out of Yemen, funded the Iranians, let them to have full reign, and basically a green light, saying we're not going to do anything to stop you. And that's why you see this now. The Houthi, and by the way, the Houthi have gone from essentially guys who rode around in Toyota 4x4s with AK-47s to using sophisticated drone technology that can now hit ships.
You're getting to my next point, Tony, which is that these actions will have reactions, and the reactions will expand regionally the Israeli-Gaza conflict, and may very well draw the United States in. I mean, these attacks are coming from the U.S. Navy. McGregor tells me, and you know this better than I, that a half dozen drones that they can buy for $10,000 each can sink a billion dollar naval ship. Not suggesting for a moment that I want this to happen, but I'm suggesting that this might happen because we are picking a fight with these people whose views of the world are different than ours.
So I don't think picking a fight is the issue. The issue is how quick can we adapt. Again, this is not just about us. 12% of global commerce goes through the Red Sea and within the Gulf of Aden. That's not us. That's the world. And if we want to just sit back and do nothing, then sure, you're going to see economic everything go down. Be affected economically. Everything from gas prices to goods. I don't think we want to do that. I'm not for us being the global policeman, but the Fifth Fleet's there for a reason.
Okay, I get
this is
your
something
argument
that we've added to. So
I want to appeal to the part of your heart and head that is libertarian, and I know it is there because we've had these conversations during our 15-year friendship.
yes, sir.
So this is Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina, speaking at the Davos conference yesterday. Now, I spoke for a long time. Chris has distilled it down to about 1 minute and 10 seconds. The essence of what he's saying is the West is dying.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Today, I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-meaning individuals willing to help others, and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points.
Does the West have any basic morals left, or is it just grab what you can and call it democracy?
I like the way he framed it. I think, and by the way, he's in the den of socialism right there on the stage.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Holy cow.
Zelensky,
Man, I hope I do.
Zelensky spoke to them. Jake Sullivan spoke to them. Tony Blinken spoke to them. All these lefties that are CEOs of Fortune 100 corporations are there. Charlie Gasparino is there.
Yeah, I saw. So, well, first off, let me frame this by as I always say, never trust a German with a utopian vision of global order. And Klaus Schwab meets that. We tried it in the 30s, it didn't work. I don't think it'll work again now. Just saying. And the same thing now. He said, I agree with everything he said, Xavier. That we have a path that the globalists have essentially laid out, and they're trying.
I don't think they wanted to hear that.
No, I don't think they did. But I'm not surprised they let him. I mean, I can't believe they didn't know what he was going to say, and he said it. And yeah, he's right. And because everything Davos stands for is exactly opposite of what he just said. They want us to be kind of eating bugs and happy owning nothing, which is, the ultimate expression of socialism or feudal mercantilism, which is another form of what they're talking about. So, right. Yeah.
Tony, thank you, my dear friend.
Sure.
Appreciate your analysis very much. Appreciate your time. I know the viewers do as well. It's early in the morning here on the East Coast in northern New Jersey. We have a foot of snow on the ground and it's 10 degrees out. And my little Chris the dog wants to go outside and play in the snow. But here I am.
That's good. You. Well, you live in the good part of Jersey outside of the refinery area. So that's good. Good for you, John.
Don't be a wise guy. Thank you, Tony. All the best. We'll see you next week. Okay.
Thank you.
What a day we have coming up. So after Tony Shaffer, Professor Sachs, Scott Ritter will tell us about his trip to the Donbass. Scott Horton, who's going to make the opposite argument from Tony Shaffer, Phil Giraldi, Colonel Wilkerson, and how else can you end the day as the sun is going down? The fearless Max Blumenthal. We'll see you shortly. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.